Okay. All right. So you have the superior rectus, the lateral rectus, the medial rectus, and the inferior rectus. You have the superior oblique. It kind of comes up the side wall, and then it hooks through this little deal and inserts on the top of the eye. And then the inferior rectus actually is inferior oblique, thank you. The inferior oblique, did I call this the superior oblique?
Yes.
Okay, inferior oblique actually comes out and inserts like kind of back here on the back of the eyeball. Okay, so those are the muscles. Then you have, let me put the eyeball back on. So you have the lacrimal gland that releases the tears into the lateral part of the eye. It washes across the eye into the lacrimal canals. There's the lacrimal sac, and there's the, we just called it the lacrimal duct on here, right? Nasolacrimal duct. All right. So then the layers of the eyeball. So you have the sclera is the white opaque part. The cornea is the clear part in the front that light can go through. So then from the outer layer, then this next layer is the choroid. That's where all the blood vessels and everything are. And inside from the choroid, that's the retinal layer. In the retina, there's two structures you kind of need to know. That's the optic disc. It's where all the axons from all the neurons feed to there, and then they continue out as the optic nerve. But that's your blind spot where your optic disc is. And then off to the side in all the eyeballs from that, that's the macula lutea, or the sweet spot where you have way more cones or better vision if you focus there. So in that, it's called the posterior chamber. This is your very sad rendition of vitreous humor that fills the back.
That's the vitreous.
Vitreous humor. That's in the posterior chamber. So from the lens back to the retina is called the posterior chamber, and it's all filled with vitreous humor. So here's the lens. The lens is actually held in place by all these tiny little muscles, and that's called the ciliary body. That's changing the shape of the lens. So from the lens forward to the cornea, that's called the anterior chamber, and that's filled with aqueous humor. Is that it?
Yep. So is that what this is, like interior chamber cavities?
So the posterior one was...
The anterior chamber is the anterior chambers are separated by the... Oh, and we didn't do the iris, and is the color of the eye, and the pupil is the hole.
And then, so the posterior...
The posterior chamber, or the posterior cavity, is any space behind from the lens back to the retina.
Okay.
And then the anterior and the anterior chamber, anterior cavity is from the lens forward to the cornea.
Okay.
And they're like separate, like you have a different fluid in the front than the back, and they don't exchange or mix or anything. So they're sealed. The lens seals the posterior from the anterior.
So would you put the tape like right here for the posterior?
Yeah, and I'd say which chamber is this or which cavity is this, because this is anything I stick it on is going to be something.
Yeah.
So for the cavity, I just have to say, what do you call this space?
So the vitreous humor is the fluid in the posterior.
Yes, and the aqueous humor is the fluid in the anterior.
Different feels too. It's the most interesting. When you guys dissected the eyeball, they were like different feeling.
Yeah, they're very different consistencies, and that's one of the key reasons I like you to do the dissection. Is you look at this little plastic thing and you just can't tell.